It's time to know how to use the forms section of the Business Brokers of Florida, and in particular, the asset purchase agreement. Stop writing these out by hand unless you don't have information on the internet or on your business listing. So even for somebody else's listing, when you've got a client that you're representing the buyer, you should be able to go to the BBF, enter the information, and if you know the listing number, find the information. So I'm going to go to typing in BBF. Hopefully you know how to do that. If you don't, give me a call or look at one of the other videos. We're going to go to forms, and then we're going to go to fill in the forms, and we're going to go down to number 70, the asset purchase contract. Now, one thing that's really great about this, and it's been throwing us off with a couple of the brokers that have recently been sending stuff in from other offices, and not just us, and they're doing it by hand, is you can't go back and edit, change, or even make addendums or counter offers and all that sort of stuff. Whereas if this is filed on the system, it makes it really terrific. I'm just doing this as a scratch, so I'm going to create a new one. But imagine you creating one, your buyer, let's say, then saying, wait, I want to change this, that, and the other. You can then go to edit and pull that same contract up and just type in the changes instead of starting all over or scratching junk out with the big initials and all the different colors and stuff like that. Now, I guess this thing is thinking I've been offline too long, so it's giving me a little bit of a hard time, but I'm going to go back and repeat it since we're doing the video. So we're going to go back to forms, and we are going to go to an asset purchase contract, and we're going to create a form, okay? Now, please behave. I'm going to type in the number, the office number. This one is a dummy one that I've created, so it's not a business, but it's one I've got in here, 0316, I believe is what it is. Let's see if we got it. So I'm going to edit, comment, and see what we got. Please come up. Please come up. Please come up. Oh, yeah. I have a 9 in there. Now let's try it. Okay, so what we've got here is this business, and I've called it Doctor Up My Eyes Vision Center on Main Street in Brandon. It is not a business. It's not a real number. None of this information is realistic, except as an example so I can share it without sort of violating anything else. So I'm going to say Mary Jones. I'm going to make up a name. Buying Dr. Eyes. You can create any name you want. The contract. Well, I'm doing this on the 18th of October, 2021. So maybe years from now, people will be looking at this and go, wow, that's really old. But for now, it's what it is. Okay, so the buyer is Mary Jones. Okay? I don't know why that's giving us that, but it's just making it fun. And Mary Jones is an individual. She lives at 3718 K Street in Washington, D.C. I'll call it D.C. down here, D.C. And I don't remember the zip code up there, 22022. Phone number is now 202-345, blah, 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 right? Whatever the number is. Okay, and you could put in... sometimes most of us now have one number. It's a cell phone, it's a home phone number, it's all the other stuff out there, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But look, all this information has been provided to you. All right, here's our corporate information. In this case, you get to be the listing broker and the selling broker, but if you were entering into somebody else's listing to make an offer on it, it would have you as the selling broker and whoever the person was for the listing broker. Okay, we're going to offer $1 million or so, right? And we're going to say we're going to give $50,000 down. That would be nice, okay? And upon acceptance, we'll offer another $50,000 down. So it's going to be $100,000 down. Is the escrow agent and a BBF member? All right, I'm going to use our Mr. Joseph Russo. You can use anybody you feel is competent and good. But the nice thing is that now all of Joseph Russo's information is being carried on. All right, I'm going to say amount purchase money carried by the seller. All right, so let's say the seller is going to hold $500,000, right? And they're going to do it over, let's say, 60 months at 5% interest rate. 5% interest rate. Monthly payments, it calculates it right there for you, so you don't have to do any extra work there. The first note will be paid on, and you got to think out into the future that you're going to do this contract and go through due diligence. So I'm going to have it happen on December the 1st. It really doesn't matter. I'm just keeping it simple. The amount of the existing promissory note, well, I don't have a promissory note, so that's going to be zero. Okay, cashiers and wires. So let's go what we've got. We've got 100,000 here. We got 500,000. That's 600,000. That's already accounted for either in escrow, 100,000, right, and 500,000 seller notes. That leaves 400,000 out of the million. So 400,000, they're gonna have to bring a check for $400,000. Oh, that'd be nice if they bring it for $4 million, especially if they're gonna give the extra to you. Now I just put the wrong thing in there because it's supposed to go there, so I just clip and paste. Remember, this line was for whether there was an existing note. Okay, now. Cashier's check. If there was any other unique financing or anything unique, that's fine. And it should come back to the $1 million, which is what we had initially at the top on the offer. If you've done this right, that number in red automatically calculated will be the number that you need to have on there. Now let's go to a time that we're going to ask them. I usually do it sort of before the end of the day, PM. I wish it said Eastern Standard Time or Middle Time or all the other stuff out there. And I'm going to give them 3 days. I'm going to have them get to us by the end. Now I'm going to close on this thing let's say that Monday, the 29th. So far, so good, right? Okay, is the buyer's intention to form an entity? Well, Mary Jones is going to form an entity later on, so she's going to put yes. Now, how long will they have to complete due diligence? So she's going to say 15 days. 15 to calendar days, and it'll start on, we have them accept by the 21st, so I'm going to have her start the very next day, the 22nd. Be careful these days, because if you have something like due diligence starts on the 21st and they don't have to accept until the 22nd, sometimes the computer's smart enough to say, hey, this doesn't make any sense, and they're going to give you a red flag here and there. I'm going to see if I can get through this without doing it. Is it contingent on a third-party financing? No, not the third party. It's going to be one of the two parties involved. The inventory will be included, absolutely. The approximate trade value of the inventory, let's say I believe we had in there $30,000, and we'll have none. There's a difference between the consumable inventory and the trade inventory. Trade inventory is generally what they're involved in the trade of the business, whereas consumables might be something like, if they have propane for their restaurant, they might have, $5,000 worth of propane and chemicals and stuff like that. Not stuff that's consumed in the process, but not so much created in the inventory to create a product to sell to the customers, but stuff that's inventory that they use to run the business. It isn't a big hang up if you get those wrong. As long as you get the grand total number correctly, that's the most important thing for most people. Some people might care a little bit. Buyer and seller should take a physical inventory, and they're going to say absolutely. And now you can choose between these two. Shall be reflected in adjustment more or less to the total price, or shall be reflected if there's a note in the business, if the note in actual inventory is more than the value of indicated. I'm going to check this one. They're going to do seller financing, but if there was no seller financing, then you might have to rethink this one and maybe have it changed at the price of the business and adjust it at the very end of the close. So in other words, let's say somebody got in there and they're expecting $30,000 and there's $35,000. What are you going to do about that difference of that $5,000, right? It's going to be more than what we were talking about. So that $5,000 has to be accounted for somewhere. So you're going to say that they'll include another $5,000 in the $500,000. Remember, there was $500,000 worth of seller financing, so they're going to finance $500,000 more, $5,000 more into the $500,000. Make sense? Now, if it was $5,000 less, you just chop it off at the closing and say, "Hey, cut me a check for $5,000 less at the closing table." So instead of $400,000, they'd bring over $395,000. Okay, here's another one. There's an asset allocation. There's a form 8594. You write it down or look it up, get to know this information, and both parties need to have the same document. Now, I find a lot of times I check this with good intentions. I get to the closing, and they're like, "Oh, I forgot to check with my accountant." So if you want to be safe and have less headache, and the attorneys kind of like it because people usually don't have this done, I check this. But I really think that morally, leading these guys to, these men and women, to get this information done early on regarding the asset allocation, that's a separate meeting altogether or conversation nonetheless. Okay, at the closing, they've got a couple different checks on the lease. And I'm not going to read everything to you. You can check that on there. So we've got that. I'm going to have them, the seller shall assign to the buyer the lease. So sometimes they're not done like that. You might have some other options. They might try and get a brand new lease. It doesn't really matter. The closing attorney. I usually like to have my closing attorney be the same as the escrow attorney. So I'm going to check same as the escrow attorney, and then it's going to fill in all the information again in that section for the closing attorney. Okay, pick the right county. I forget where I set this one on a dummy one. It really doesn't matter. Let's see if we get Hillsborough County. Okay, is the real estate included? Absolutely not. And you might have some other stuff in there that you want to include in here, like, hey, I want to make sure Mary doesn't do whatever, or the doctor still wants to help on an hourly basis of $100 an hour for 20 hours a week for the first 3 months, or what have you. There's going to be different things that you want to add in that this does already haven't really thought of. So let's see if we get down to the very end. Then there's a list of assets. I can see attached, see below, and that would be a separate document that you can attach, or you can clip and paste the asset purchase. I'm going to say that there's none on here right now. It should have one, but I'm not typing it in there. Actually, see below is really good. And you can type in scanners. I don't even know the name of the different equipment that you would have in there. Chart, tools, what have you. So you can include it like that, and then just include it in there, and then let's hit save and verify. Now, if it comes out wrong, I'm going to get some machine yelling at me, hey, you did something wrong, dummy, and look at that. It's got something to say already. So you see how there's all the red information. You can read all that stuff. I'm going to review and go down and look for where it gets to be orange data and see what it's yelling at me about. Okay, I'm keeping on going down, going down, going down. Aha, the accounts receivable included in this business. Okay, are there accounts receivable? And automatically checked yes, or maybe I did it by mistake. I'm getting rid of that. Does the buyer intend to use a fictitious name? Yeah, they're going to use that incredible name, and they're going to use a fictitious name. Okay, let's look, see if there's other things that says seller and or owner. I can put in there. And will there be a covenant not to compete? And we're going to hit generally yes. 5 miles for a period of 5 years, 5 and 5. All right, see? So it yells at me too, and I'm doing the class, and I do these all the time. Well, not all the time. I wish I was doing them more often, but nonetheless. Okay, no accounts receivable indicating the price. The buyer to forward the accounts receivable receipts, blah, 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 blah. So let's see what it also is yelling at me one more time for a period of, let's say, 5 days. Okay, so now both parties have to agree to this, but most importantly, the person making the offer, that's you helping the buyer. You need to review all this. So when you get to the very end, you're going to do this, and then you're going to hopefully send it out. If you've negotiated well, you're going to have people there. Now I can display the printable contract, and it looks something like this. And the beauty of this is you can send this off. You can sign it through a signed signature system, so they can initial all the pages. Right? And then the seller, the buyer is going to have to do the same sort of thing. But you have this completed contract with all the details. So if you're not really familiar with this, print one out and just read it. Get to know where all the data and the information are. If you don't understand, read it again or get somebody to help you out. Call me, call a fellow broker, call an attorney that works with us and say, I'm trying to figure out what this thing means about the mutually agreed upon accounts receivable having a value of whatever. But hopefully this gives you a high-level view. I'm trying to make this really short, and I'm already going longer than I wanted to. But it's really important that you start doing this, and the beauty of it being that you can then go back and make changes later on, or you can add an addendum, 316. Okay, so that's the number on it. We've got that all said and done. All right, so I hope that is somewhat helpful to you, and I'll see you on the other side of all the deals out there. Let's make it happen. Take care. Thanks. Bye-bye. Oh, wait, one more thing. If you want to hang in there for one more stuff out there, go to the main menu, and I'm going to make this the addendum to it. So forms, I'm going to just show you forms. Remember that was number 316, and we're going to go back to making an addendum prepared by me or the co-broker. Addendum. And I got a lot of them in here. Shamefully, I need to remove some of those, so I don't think I got all that going on currently. You go back to 316, Dr. My Eyes with Mary Jones, and I could say drop price to, 599,999. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. Price, you can do that. Seller to work free for 60 days. Buyer gets Eyes checked prior to closing for free or whatever, FREE, right? And then you can put in any information, and then you can have them sign this addendum, and you've got that done too. You just hit print, and you print that off, and now you've got the stuff, and it has all the basic information already in there, and it pertains to the same contract, so you don't have to rewrite everything, fill in the headers, fill in the buyer and seller information and the dates and all that sort of stuff. Done. Okay, that's it for you. I'll talk to you later. Thank you. Bye-bye.